we do have the issue or risk of food security. The Food and Agriculture Organization has said about 25.3 million people in Nigeria will experience acute food insecurity this year, 2023. And we're already seeing a lot of threats to that. Top of the list at this time is the issue of flood. And we see climate change dominating a lot of conversations, even in the just concluded G20 summit in India. Obviously, climate change is being was a top of what they were talking about. And then when we come to Nigeria, obviously the issue of flood. Lives have been lost, properties have been lost, farmlands have been lost, and we do have other risks there. So how do we de-risk the agribusiness in Nigeria and look at investment opportunity? Who else to talk about this but the principal manager of Agric Value with the Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System, Agricultural Lending, a mouthful, so we can just say NIRSAL. He's here in the studio joining us. Mr. Akiola Bayiru. Good morning, Mr. Bayiru.
Good morning.
So I guess you'll be in the best position to talk about this issue of de-risking. But it seems that security was, I think, as a last year, the top risk to agriculture and farming. But at this time, we're talking more about flood. I wonder if, from your observation in NIRSAL, if the issue of security has been handled, even if to an extent.
So the issue of security continues to be handled. It's something that the government is already working on. We also have the issue of flood that has happened because of climate change. A lot has been happening, desertification and the rest of that. And a lot of work is being done to reduce the impact of climate change, right? The beauty of it is that Nigeria is such a wide country, and we still have opportunity to expand beyond what we already do and to the areas where the flood is already affecting. What is very important in de-risking with regards to flood is for us to have timely information for the farmers to know exactly where do we plant, what does the weather say, and all of that. NIRSAL is doing a lot working with other partners to see how we can de-risk that. But then it's not just flood. So if you look at Nigeria as a whole, you have a country that is very big with immense opportunities. You have 80 million hectares of land, out of which just 40 is being cultivated, right? And there's so much scope, inland waterways, the coastal lines, you have the brackish water. So there's so much opportunities for both crop production, the livestock, as well as the fisheries. Now, why haven't we been able to take advantage of what our country offers us? There's a lot of risks in agribusiness as we know it today. But then how are we structured as a country to deal with increased productivity? First of all, you will see that most of the people producing in Nigeria are smallholder farmers. And they are scattered all over the country, so that though the government has a lot of intervention that they want to do, to reach those smallholder farmers becomes a bit difficult. So you have somebody planting tomatoes here, the next person planting maize, and the next person planting what have you in the next place. Now, for us to be able to do that, what NIRSAL has done is to try to structure all of them into what we call agro-geo cooperatives, so that you have all of them within a certain area being able to do one thing, having a fixed market, us bringing them together in a structured form. What that does is that when there is an intervention to de-risk, it can go to them. Quality inputs can go to all of them within the same area. Logistics can come to them. So what we've done is to build a platform. We'll be working extensively over the last couple of years to see that that platform is built. And then we can use that platform to attract investments. I mean, there are other things that we still have to deal with to bring investments, but the agro-geo cooperatives, bringing all of them together in clusters, provides that platform to bring in investment. So if I want to bring in, say, a mechanization, for instance, if I already have a captive market for that, then I can make a business case for investments to come and de-risk the value chain through that end. That also gives us the opportunity to create financial identity for farmers and all the people within that space. So when we do that, we can then say, this has happened, logistics can come, because they're not scattered all over the place, logistics can come into it. Extension services with a little help can reach more people because we've kept them together, right? And then we can then also have access to market. Because you're there, you're now making a business case for the industries that will need you to come get you at that space. We can eliminate middlemen to some level. That is one of the things that we do. So to be able to also get that investment in, we've had all sorts of frameworks, business models that we've developed working with financial institutions and the likes of them. One of those is the mechanization financing framework, right? Like I said earlier, we have about 80 million hectares of land. We've cultivated 40. To get to the level of food security that we want to get to in Nigeria, we have to, first of all, increase the productivity on the existing land and then expand the areas that we're producing. So to be able to do that, we need to have mechanized farming, quality inputs, and all of that in place. Now, if we're able to do that, then everything goes up. But we've created a model that helps the tractors get to the farmers. A smallholder farmer doesn't have more than 1 hectare of land that he's farming on. So it doesn't make a business sense for him to buy a tractor. What we've done is that we use the pay-for-service model. We try to bring in people who would rent out the tractors to the farmers. And when they do that, they can rent out the tractors to several farmers, they can reach several communities. And the way Nigeria is structured is that they can go from, say, the southwest, sometime around March, and be somewhere around Funtua in Katsina in, say, June, because of the way our rains are.
So I just have to interrupt you there, because we've had quite a number of people talk to us about what they're doing when it comes to food security. As you can imagine, food is one of the most basic needs of man, and we even had the president declare that state of emergency, food insecurity. So right here on this chair, we've had the she farmers, a kind of a cooperative that brings women together, and one of the being farmers, obviously, one of their challenges is the issue of getting the equipment, this mechanized farming that you have so beautifully portrayed. So, and then we also have another corporation that works with communities and handles one community, a crop, a community, area of advantages. So I'm just thinking, isn't there a way to work closer, be more coordinated? Perhaps we will have more results. For the women, for instance, they've been able to approach some state government. I think she mentioned Ekiti, and they've given them a large expanse of land. But when the mechanized farming is a problem, so output is still low. And now you have NIRSAL, which is a big organization, can afford to attract. So is there a way to coordinate, be more coordinated, and bring these efforts together so we can have more fruits?
NIRSAL is that coordinating platform. NIRSAL can play the role of that coordinating platform that brings them together. Now, we've done a lot in terms of collaborations with several parties. I think we've had maybe conversations with the She Farmer group. But what we try to do to make some of these things work, but not just work now in the short term, there are interventions that come. Now, the way we see interventions is that they should be short term, right? They need to end at some point in time, and the normal commercial way of doing things has to come in, right? So what we try to do with the things like the mechanization financing framework and all the other frameworks is to try to create something that is sustainable, such that when government is no longer granting subsidy in that area, the normal business sense for that thing works, right? That's why I said we would try to bring everybody together so that we can create that business case for that investor to go into that space. He already has a captive market, and that's what we try to do. So we've had several programs. I think we have a project on women in agriculture. So what we try to do is to create that framework and plug in people, create the business model that works, and then plug in people. So we'll do the mechanization financing framework. Sometimes we'll do a bit of personal investment to get the proof of concept. Then we go to the banks. We do a lot of training for banks and other financial institutions so that they get the concept that we're trying to pass across, so that they also understand agribusiness better. That way, when they do come in, they're coming in as a commercial transaction, and they're not coming in as, it's not charity, it's not, agriculture has to be done, it's agribusiness. So they do come in, and then we can create that kind of sustainability because everybody is making money out of it.
Okay, so let's not dwell only on crops. We also have the issue of livestock.
Absolutely.
Poultry farmers the other time threatened to shut down, and we have visuals of them burying eggs. And of course, we know how far that can go. Apart from just providing protein, the issue of livestock affects industries. You know, you use all of that. Are you able to do things with them? I mean, the poultry farmers and the livestock.
Absolutely. Sometimes when something happens we try to de-risk an area or the country tries to de-risk an area, another risk could come up as a result of that activity. So I'll give an example of the poultry farmers. Because we try to produce maize, in the long term, we will produce enough maize and the price will come down because our yields will go up, right? But in the short term, the prices have gone up because we're not producing as much for them to feed their birds. So that cost has gone up on one hand. And then there was a market that was created by some of the programs and some other things, and then purchasing
like the
power.
Feeding, school feeding program.
Absolutely. So when that isn't so much there, then there's a glut, right? With the glut, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to bury the eggs. It just means that there needs to be investment in some kind of processing, right? And so what NIRSAL will try to do is to find those who would invest in processing, like the egg powder. I know that there's a project somewhere around Ondo State, Akure, that they're working on currently, and we're in talks with them right now. So we'll try to find a way that will take that the excess eggs and turn them into egg powder, which can keep the shelf life is there. We can export as we begin to improve our quality. So I
guess the egg powder processing is at the primary stage because It seems a lot of farmers have not adopted it yet.
Absolutely. But those are the kind of things that would help de-risk. So we'll de-risk from an individual business standpoint, and then we'll de-risk from a systemic standpoint by directing some strategic investment that helps solve that problem. It's always important for us to look at, our approach at NIRSAL is to look at things from the value chain point of view, so that when we're bringing in the investment are coming in to that value chain or through the value chain. For instance, you could have a processing company, say Nigerian breweries, needing sorghum. Then if we have properly structured the farmers and properly structured the people who will supply them sorghum, it then becomes an opportunity to pass the money to them through that and not necessarily take a loan. They could supply seed with the plan to buy back from Nigerian breweries. So it's another way of financing, but at the end of the day, what happens is that the seed goes out, their own supply is assured, the money has gone from one player in the value chain to another player in the value chain. Or we create players to join the value chain if it becomes necessary.
Okay, so with all of these efforts, what would be your reaction to this number that the Food and Agriculture has given, that more than 20 million Nigerians, will have acute food insecurity this year? And we're in September already. Have we overcome it? Can we overcome it? Are we deep in it?
I would say that the current government has shown very clear intentions as to how it intends to get out, and it's working really hard.
Have they? I know there's been a declaration of a state of emergency, but I haven't seen the details. Do you understand, of the path of implementing it? So, when we say they've shown details of it, I don't know. Maybe I missed it. I don't mind being corrected.
In a very broad sense, it is to increase productivity, right? Expand the areas that we cultivate, as well as expand the yields. And that's why they are very big on inputs, fertilizers, and the rest of that, to expand the yield, as well as expand the areas under cultivation. That's why they're also very big on mechanization. NIRSAL will be working with the government. NIRSAL is part of the government. NIRSAL will work with that government, with this government, to ensure that this is achieved. Now, we will provide that platform. We will work with farmers. We will work to de-risk, to crowd in funding, not just at the end of the day, to get real impact, private sector funding has to go into this, and a lot of it has to go into it. But to be able to do that, NIRSAL will help de-risk and give them that kind of confidence to bring in the funds. I always say this, that if we look at the people trying to fund, we have $100 trillion US outside there, just looking for where do I put myself. And the benchmark rate is somewhere around 6%. And if you can get above that, then we also have us here looking for the kind of funding that can help us catalyze our growth, really. So what is in between the two of that is being able to de-risk. And that is what NIRSAL is all about. One of the things we do, we also provide some level of guarantee to say, or risk-sharing fund, which is what we do, to say that if they do not pay, we will pay. And for us to be able to take that kind of risk, we must have done extensive amount of work. Another thing we've done, we've been able to facilitate some level of insurance that is different from the way the typical insurance is, to reduce the risk of primary production.
Well, it's time to let you go, but I can't help but just ask, just briefly, the issue of post-harvest loss.
Absolutely.
It's still a challenge.
Yes.
That's also another area we need to attract more investment, private sector investment, because, I mean, there's profits to be made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with the issue of post-harvest losses, a lot of work is going on around warehousing as a way around it. To some extent, though this is long-term, the special agric processing zone would be very close to the field, and processing happens around there. A lot is also happening with climate funding, and that is also at the beginning of the discussion stage, where we're able to use that to crowd in some level of shared storage, cold room type of thing, where we use solar and all the other things for productive use of energy. So a lot will happen there, but then some of these things will take time. So you put something in place, it has some bit of time before you start to see the impact of it.
Yeah, but I guess at the bottom of it, if we de-risk the business, then we'll have investors flowing there with their funds. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Mr. Akinola Vaiwu, Principal Manager, Agric Value with NIRSAL, for your time this morning.
Thank you.